Okay, hello Cloud Gurus and welcome to this lecture. This lecture we're going to look at how to secure S3 using CloudFront. So essentially what we want to do is we don't want users to be able to browse to our S3 bucket using the S3 URL. We want to force them using CloudFront. And what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and set up an S3 bucket. We're then going to set up a CloudFront distribution, and we're deliberately going to set it so that users can browse directly using the S3 bucket. And then we're going to look at how we can alter our CloudFront distribution to force them to use the CloudFront URL and not the S3 URL. If you remember how to do this from the associate courses, feel free to skip this lecture, but just be aware that this is an exam topic. So let's log into the AWS console. Okay, so I've logged into the AWS console. I might just change my region over to somewhere that's more local to me. I'm based out of London. It's entirely up to you as to where you want your region. It doesn't really matter for this lecture. Let's go over to S3. I'm going to create a new bucket, and I'm going to call this a Cloud Guru CFD bucket, something like that. So CloudFront distribution bucket. I'm going to make it in London, and I'm just going to go ahead and hit create. That will now create my bucket, and then as soon as that is done, that's all we really need to do. Just have a look at it down here. So a Cloud Guru, and then CFD bucket. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to go back over to the console, and I want to go over to CloudFront itself. CloudFront does move around. It should hopefully, it's under network and content delivery. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this. I'm going to create a new distribution. Be aware that when creating distributions, it can take 10 to 15 minutes to, completely roll out globally. So it's not instantaneous. It also can take a while to, force it using URLs as well. It's something I've noticed. And annoyingly, here is a CloudFront distribution that I've disabled but never gone on to delete. I'm quickly going to delete that so it doesn't cost me any more money. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to create a distribution. We're going to be using a web distribution. And so the origin domain name. So this is the origin. Basically, it's our source S3 bucket. So we called it a Cloud Guru CFD bucket.cs3. Origin path, this is basically any subfolder that you want inside your bucket. I don't need an origin path. In here, we've got restrict bucket access. So it says if you want to require that users always access your Amazon S3 content using CloudFront URLs, not Amazon S3 URLs, then click yes. So right now, I'm just going to click no. I'm not going to do that. What you typically will be tested on is how to restrict bucket access after a distribution has been deployed. So that's what we're going to learn in this lecture. I'm going to scroll down. I'm going to leave everything basically as default. Scroll all the way down, and let's just have a quick look. Now this is, with SSL, this is something that definitely comes up in your exam, and what you can be tested on is around custom SSL certificates. So you can see here I can't import a custom SSL certificate currently, and you use a custom SSL certificate if you want to use your own domain name. So rather than using this sort of CloudFront domain name, which is a whole bunch of random letters and numbers .cloudfront.net, what you could do is have like a cloud.guru as your as your distribution, and you'd be doing that through HTTPS. In order to do that though, you need to import a certificate through ACM. So this is through Amazon Certificate Manager. So you will need your own SSL certificate. It will need to sit inside your CloudFront distribution. Do not confuse this with load balancers. Those are completely separate certificates. You need a separate certificate for your load balancer, and you need a separate certificate for your CloudFront distribution. Bear that in mind going into the exam. I'm going to put that in my exam tips. I'm not going to show you how to do it because that's basically what you need to know. You need to understand that it is separate certificates. Your CloudFront distribution can't just go and borrow the certificate from your Elastic load balancers. It needs its own copy of the certificate inside the distribution. And to do that, all you need to do is click on here, request or import a certificate with ACM. So moving down, we're going to leave everything else as default. We're going to go ahead and hit create our distribution. Literally is that simple. It says it's in progress. I'm going to pause the video. It'll probably take 10 to 15 minutes, sometimes up to 20 minutes. And then what we need to do is go in and edit this distribution so that S3 is locked down. So let's pause the video here. Okay, so we can see that has now been deployed. If I quickly just go back over to S3, what I'm going to do is I'm going to add an object to my S3 bucket. It's just going to be a little like TXT object. And then what I'm going to do is just try and access that using the S3 URL. And then we're going to go back into CloudFront and we're going to lock that down. So I want the A Cloud Guru, and it was this one, CFD bucket. So I'm going to go ahead and upload a file, and I'm going to just upload a TXT file. So here we go, hello.txt. Go ahead and hit open, go ahead and hit upload. Has now uploaded this file to my S3 bucket. My internet is being ridiculously slow today. If I click on this, I'm going to go ahead and just make it public. So make public and hit make public. And we'll click on the properties of this object and click in here. And if I go up and have a look at the URL, you can see the URL up here. So it is s3.eu-west-2.amazonaws.com. Then my bucket name, and then / hello.txt. So let's go back over to CloudFront, and what we'll do is inside CloudFront, we'll lock this down. So if I just go back over to services and go down to, it's under network and connectivity, CloudFront, click on that. So here we go, here's my CloudFront distribution. So to do this, all I need to click on is the checkbox and then go over to my distribution settings. I then go over to my origin and I click on the origin and I go ahead and click on edit. And literally it is just as simple as clicking restrict bucket access. Now to do this, we need an origin access identity. So what's an origin access identity? Well, essentially to require that users always access your Amazon S3 content using CloudFront URLs, you assign a special CloudFront user, an origin access identity, to your origin. You can either create a new origin access identity or reuse an existing one. Reusing an existing identity is recommended for the common use cases. Additional configuration is required. I'm actually just going, I wonder if I have an existing one. No, I don't. So I'm going to create a new one. And this is just given a default name, access identity, A Cloud Guru CFD, and there's the bucket name. And then here it says grant read permission on bucket. So if we click in here, it says if you want CloudFront to automatically grant read permission to the origin access identity when you create the distribution, so CloudFront can access objects in your Amazon S3 bucket, click yes, update my bucket permissions. So yes, I definitely do want to do this because I don't want to have to go in and do it manually myself. So I'm going to click on yes here. So it's really important to understand these two steps going into the exam. You need to go in and say edit your origin. You then need to restrict your bucket access. You need to create a new origin access identity, and you want to grant read permissions on the bucket. So you want CloudFront to go in and update the bucket policy. So once we've done all that, go ahead and hit yes, and that will then go in and update the bucket. Now, if you actually test this immediately, it can take a while to take some effect. And how long is a while? Well, it is actually quite annoying. If you go back to your, your distribution, you can see it's going to be redeploying right now, and you can wait till the status has changed to deployed. But it won't actually take effect then. It can take anywhere between 4 to 48 hours to actually take effect, to actually force you to be using the CloudFront URLs and not the S3 URLs. So it can be quite a frustrating thing. So do just bear that in mind. Definitely don't wait before continuing on to other lectures, because you might be waiting 2 days. But it is something you want to come back to probably this time tomorrow to be safe. You can try it in a few hours from now, but it's certainly not going to take effect in the next 20 minutes or so. It does take a little bit of time. So that is it for this lecture, guys. If you have any questions, please let me know. If not, feel free to move on to the next lecture. Thank you.